Have you ever wondered why heartbreak hits you harder than it should? Why one woman walking away can feel like the ground ripped out from under you, leaving you desperate, restless, obsessed not just with her, but with proving something to yourself? Heartbreak does that because it's not just about her, it's about you. It's about your identity, your ego, your unspoken belief that she was proof you mattered. And when she leaves, it feels like that proof is gone. That's why most men either collapse into weakness or burn themselves alive in the fire of revenge. But here's the truth, both of those paths will destroy you. There's a third path, and it's the only one that makes you untouchable. It's the path of focus. Imagine this: you've been ghosted by a woman you gave everything to. Days turn into weeks and you can't stop checking her Instagram, seeing her post stories with someone else, imagining her laughter belongs to him now. You want to text her, you want to rage, you want to prove you're better. That's revenge creeping in. But what happens when you chase it? You lose more of yourself, because now, your every move is still about her. And here's the brutal truth: the moment she knows she can still control your state, even in absence, she wins. She doesn't even need to reply. Your obsession is enough. Focus is different. Focus is when you take that chaos, that gnawing ache, that hurricane of rejection, and you redirect it, not into proving her wrong, but into building something she'll never even get to touch again, a life so solid, so disciplined, so valuable that no one has the power to take it from you. That's what heartbreak is supposed to be: the alarm clock for a man who's been sleeping on himself. Think about the trap most men fall into. A woman withdraws her attention, maybe slowly, maybe brutally. She stops texting back with the same energy. She's busy every time you try to meet. And instead of pulling back, you push harder, you double text, you buy her gifts, you beg for time. You try to remind her how good you are. You're bargaining with someone who has already moved you into the category of weakness. That desperation doesn't pull her back. It cements her decision to leave. Because women can sense when you've placed her at the center of your existence. And once she feels that, she knows she's your master, not your lover. You need to recognize that moment in real time. When she pulls away, when her messages turn cold, when you feel that urge to chase, that's when the test begins. You don't send the paragraph. You don't stalk her feed. You don't drown in liquor thinking of her face. You cut the thread. You breathe. You step back. You tell yourself, her silence is not a command for me to act. It's a signal for me to detach. That's focus. It's not glamorous. It doesn't feel satisfying in the moment. But it's the seed of something greater. And here's the tactic: take the exact hours you'd waste spiraling over her and invest them ruthlessly into yourself. If you would have spent 2 hours crafting texts, take those 2 hours and put them into the gym. If you would have spent your Friday night scrolling through her social media, spend that time studying a new skill that advances your career. If you would have spent your morning checking your phone for her reply, spend it in silence, journaling, setting goals, and building discipline. Every time you would have poured energy into her absence, pour it into your growth. That's how heartbreak becomes fuel instead of poison. Let me give you an example. There was a guy who got left for someone else, a story so common it barely raises an eyebrow. But instead of spiraling, he started running. Not for her, but for him. He turned that rage into miles, every morning before dawn. Within 6 months, he'd transformed his body, his mindset, and his drive. By the time she came crawling back out of boredom, he wasn't just over her. He was unrecognizable to her, a man she no longer had access to. That's what happens when heartbreak is turned into focus. Here's the raw truth: women respect distance more than desperation. When you disappear into your work, your mission, your self-respect, you become magnetic again. Not because you're chasing her, but because you're chasing yourself. And ironically, that's when many women resurface. But by then, it won't matter, because if you've done this right, you won't want her back. You'll want the man you became without her. So let me ask you, have you ever begged for attention you knew was already gone? Have you ever seen yourself get weaker in the chase and hated yourself for it? What's the one mistake you've made in heartbreak that you still regret? Be honest, drop it in the comments. You know what happens after the first shock fades, the silence creeps in, the nights when you stare at the ceiling, running through every conversation, every laugh, every moment, looking for the crack where things fell apart. And here's the dangerous part in that silence. Your mind becomes your worst enemy. You start rewriting history, turning her into an angel and yourself into a fool. You start imagining that if you just said one different sentence, or planned one different date, she'd still be here. That is the loop that traps men in heartbreak, not the loss of her, but the constant bleeding of self-respect through obsession. You need to hear this. The woman you're crying over is not the same woman you imagine in your head. She's not the perfect angel you've painted with nostalgia. She's a human being who made a decision, and that decision was to walk away from you. Don't romanticize betrayal. Don't polish abandonment into beauty. That illusion is what keeps you weak. Most men think revenge is the cure. They want to get ripped just to post shirtless photos she'll see. They want to earn more money just so she hears about it through mutual friends. They want to show up somewhere with another girl on their arm, pretending they don't care while their entire life is still engineered around her opinion. That's not freedom. That's slavery disguised as strength. If your success is still about her, you haven't won. You've just built a bigger cage and called it victory. Focus is the antidote. Focus is when you no longer measure your progress by whether she notices. You stop looking at her shadow in every room. You stop waiting for her reaction. You build because you're a man, not because you're a puppet dancing for her ghost. That's the difference between obsession and discipline. One keeps you in her orbit. The other launches you out of it forever. Here's how it plays out in real life. A guy gets dumped, and he thinks the only way to cope is to distract himself with endless hookups. For a while, he feels powerful, but at night, when the noise dies, he still feels empty. Why? Because his actions are still controlled by pain. Contrast that with another guy who gets dumped and decides to lock in on himself. He starts a strict morning routine, invests in a side business, trains his body like it's war. At first, it feels brutal, lonely, but slowly. His self-respect grows. He stops checking his phone for her. He stops wondering who she's with. He's too busy building something that feeds him. That's the man who wins, not because he moved on faster, but because he shifted the axis of his life from women to himself. You have to ask yourself, what are you doing with your pain? Are you feeding it with fantasies of revenge, or are you cutting its fuel supply by turning it into motion? Pain is energy. Most men waste it. They cry it out, drink it away, or spend it chasing ghosts. But the rare man sees it as raw material. He burns it into his workouts. He channels it into his craft. He sharpens it into his silence. That's when heartbreak becomes the turning point that makes you dangerous not to her, but to your old self. Here's a tactical move. Set a non-negotiable project for yourself immediately after heartbreak. Something that consumes time and forces progress. If you've been talking about learning a skill, now is the time. If you've been slacking in fitness, now is the time. If you've been wasting your career potential, now is the time. Don't heal first. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start while it hurts, and let the pain be the engine. Because if you wait until the pain fades, you'll go back to comfort. And comfort is what kept you soft in the first place. And let's get brutally honest about her silence. When she pulls away and you feel that sting, the worst thing you can do is chase. Every hey, just checking in text. Every I miss you drunk message. Every attempt to remind her of your love. That's you teaching her that your attention is free, endless, and weak. Instead, you must master the art of indifference. Not fake indifference. Not posting quotes about self-love while secretly checking your phone every 5 minutes. Real indifference. The kind that comes from knowing your life is too heavy, too full, too focused for her silence to disturb. That's power. Because here's the secret women test men in silence. They watch what you do when they pull back. And if you crumble, you prove you were never the strong one in the first place. But if you hold steady, if you pull back harder, if you let the silence turn into distance without chasing, that's when she realizes you're not just another man she can control. You become the man she can't replace. Now, tell me when she's pulled away from you in the past. How did you react? Did you chase? Did you beg? Or did you step back? And which of those choices left you feeling stronger afterward? Be honest with yourself and share your answer in the comments. There's a moment in every heartbreak when you reach the crossroads. One path is easy, the spiral. You replay memories, you dig through old messages, you stalk her social media like an addict searching for the next fix. You torture yourself with visions of her moving on while you remain chained to the past. That path feels comforting at first, because it keeps her alive in your mind. But it kills you slowly, draining your energy day after day. The other path is brutal, because it requires cutting the vein that feeds your obsession. It means deleting her number, muting her feed, removing the reminders that poison your nights. It feels like ripping a piece of yourself out. But that wound is where strength grows. Every man who has been through heartbreak knows the magnetic pull of weakness. It's when you draft a long text at 2 a.m., pouring your soul into words you'll regret by sunrise. It's when you show up at places you know she'll be, pretending it's coincidence. It's when you let her absence dominate your presence. That's the addiction talking. And the only cure for addiction is withdrawal, not from her, but from the dependency you built around her. This is the part most men never see clearly. Heartbreak is not just about her decision to leave, it's about your decision to place your identity in her hands. That's why it feels so catastrophic. She didn't just walk away with herself. She walked away with the version of you that you thought was only real because she reflected it back. And now, without her, you feel like you're nothing. That's the lie. You were something before her. You'll be something after her. But only if you stop clinging to the illusion that your worth depends on her validation. Here's the trap the human mind craves: closure. You want answers. You want explanations. You want her to sit down and justify every moment of pain she caused. But even if she gave you every word, it wouldn't heal you, because it's not knowledge you lack, it's acceptance. And acceptance only comes when you stop demanding that the story ends the way you wanted. She doesn't owe you a final chapter. You owe yourself a new book. Now let's talk strategy, because emotion without action is useless. The first battlefield is your environment. If you keep the photos, the texts, the reminders, you will fail. Every trigger is a chain. You need to strip your world of her echoes, not because you're bitter, but because you need space to breathe. The second battlefield is your routine. Heartbreak creates empty hours, the time you used to spend texting her, planning with her, being with her. If you leave that space unguarded, it will be filled with misery. Fill it first. Lock in workouts, projects, learning. If she took your Friday nights, You take them back by investing in your body, your craft, your mission. The third battlefield is your focus. Every time your mind drifts back to her, pull it ruthlessly into the present. Not later, not tomorrow. Right now. That's discipline. Picture this: a man loses the woman he thought was his future. At first, he collapses, he begs, he drinks, he drowns. But then, one morning, he chooses differently. He writes down 3 things: build his body, build his career, build his silence. He deletes her from his phone. He sets his alarm 2 hours earlier. He grinds in the gym until exhaustion replaces sorrow. He works overtime on his skills until he forgets her face while chasing his goals. Months later, he doesn't just move on. He transcends. And when she calls again, curious, nostalgic, he doesn't even feel hatred. He feels nothing. That's the win. You see, heartbreak isn't just pain, it's raw energy. But raw energy without control explodes and destroys everything in its path. With control, it becomes fire for building. That's why heartbreak either ruins men or remakes them. The difference is focus. Here's your immediate test tonight. When the urge comes to check her profile, to send that text, to dive back into memory, stop. Replace it with action. Do 20 push-ups. Read 10 pages of a book. Write down 1 goal you'll execute tomorrow. Small, ruthless replacements break the cycle. Weak men surrender to impulse. Strong men redirect it. So tell me when you've been at your lowest. What did you do with the silence? Did you let it consume you, or did you fight it with structure? Have you ever replaced pain with progress and surprised yourself? Drop your answer below. Do you know why heartbreak feels like a storm you can't escape? Because it strips away your illusions, leaving you naked with the truth of who you are without her. That's why it hurts so deeply, not just because she left, but because you're forced to face the parts of yourself you've ignored. The dependency, the overinvestment, the way you made her opinion the mirror of your worth. This is why men drown. They confuse the loss of a woman with the loss of themselves. But the men who rise, they use heartbreak as the mirror they've been avoiding. They don't run from the reflection. They study it, and then they rebuild it. Here's what most men don't realize. Women are not only partners, they are mirrors. They reflect back the strength, the weakness, the cracks you hide from yourself. When she pulls away, when she leaves, what you see is not just her choice. You see yourself exposed. If you were too needy, it shows. If you had no mission, it shows. If you made her your center, it shows. That's why heartbreak is the most honest feedback you'll ever receive. And if you're smart, you'll use it. But let's get tactical. Every man needs a post-heartbreak system, a code of survival. First, physical discipline. Your body is the foundation. When heartbreak crushes your chest, when the nights feel endless, you fight it through movement. Lift, run, sweat. Pain in the body converts pain in the mind into power. Second, emotional detachment. That doesn't mean numbness. It means training yourself to observe without reacting. When her name pops up in your mind, you don't dive into fantasy. You watch the thought pass like a cloud, and then you return to your work. Third, purpose alignment. This is where most men fail. They try to distract themselves with noise parties, rebounds, empty indulgence. But noise fades, purpose anchors. If you use heartbreak to fuel your purpose, you win twice, you heal, and you ascend. Let's paint it real. Imagine a man who just got dumped. He spends the first week drunk, angry, venting to friends. Then he wakes up one morning, looks in the mirror, and realizes he can't keep living this way. He makes a vow: 90 days of ruthless discipline. No contact, no chasing, no pity. He channels every ounce of rage into training, reading, working. At first, it feels impossible. Every rep in the gym is haunted by her face. Every page of a book is interrupted by her memory. But slowly, he notices the change. His body grows stronger. His mind sharpens. His goals come alive. And when she finally texts, "Hey, I miss you," he feels nothing but clarity, because now, he's not the man who begged. He's the man who became untouchable. And here's the paradox: when you stop trying to prove yourself to her, you prove yourself to yourself. That's when you gain the one thing most men never taste: quiet power. Not the loud, showy kind that screams on social media. The silent, unshakable kind that radiates in every movement. When you walk into a room and don't need anyone's approval, people feel it. When you work in silence and let results speak, respect follows. When you don't chase, you attract. That's what heartbreak can give you if you let it. Now, let's talk about the cost of choosing revenge, because you need to see the trap clearly. A man who seeks revenge never really moves on. He's still tied to her, still burning his energy in her direction, even if he wins, even if he makes her jealous. He loses because his growth was never about him. It was about her. That means she still owns him. That's the harsh truth. Focus, on the other hand, cuts the cord. It's not about her anymore. It's about building something so solid that no one's betrayal can shake it again. The next time you feel the pain rising in your chest, stop and ask yourself, what can I build with this energy? Don't waste it. Pain is fuel, but only if you direct it. Write, lift, learn, grind. Use it like fire, not like acid. Fire builds, acid destroys. Your choice determines which man you become. So let me ask you this. Have you ever tried to make her jealous just to get even? Did it actually make you feel better? Or did it just remind you she still had power? And when you think back, what would have happened if you had invested that same energy into yourself instead? Tell me your story in the comments. There comes a point in heartbreak where you finally realize the truth. It was never really about her. Yes, she left. Yes, she betrayed. Yes, she pulled the rug from under you. But the real battle was never between you and her. It was between you and the version of yourself that was too comfortable giving away your power. That's why heartbreak feels like a death, because the weak version of you has to die. Or else you stay chained to the same cycle forever. You can't keep telling yourself she was the one. That's a fairy tale men cling to so they don't have to face their own lack of standards. If she left, she wasn't the one. If she disrespected you, betrayed you, or treated you as disposable, then she was just another test you failed to pass. And you pass it not by winning her back, not by making her regret it, but by never again lowering yourself to the point where you let someone else dictate your worth. Think about how many men destroy themselves after heartbreak. They chase, they overcompensate, they drown in distractions. They waste years in cycles of bitterness, telling themselves they'll show her. But what they don't see is that every second spent thinking about her is proof they're still controlled by her. Even in absence, she's still pulling the strings. That is the real trap. And if you want to be free, you have to cut every invisible thread. Cutting those threads is not just about deleting her number or avoiding her social media. It's about removing the deeper dependency. It's about teaching yourself that your emotional state cannot be bought, stolen, or manipulated by anyone's approval. That's the real lesson heartbreak gives you: sovereignty. And sovereignty means you are the master of your time, your focus, your drive. No one else sits at the control panel. This is where silence comes in. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not running away. Silence is a weapon. When you stop explaining yourself, stop proving yourself, stop begging to be heard, you reclaim the one thing most men never have: mystery. Women test men constantly, and one of their strongest weapons is attention withdrawal. They pull back, they grow cold, they go silent, and they wait to see what you'll do. Weak men panic. They fill the silence with desperate texts and calls. Strong men embrace the silence. They let the space stretch. They let her wander. They refuse to dance on command. And in that refusal, they win. Here's the paradox you need to internalize: the less you chase, the more you attract. The more you need her, the less she respects you. The more you detach, the more she realizes your value. And yet, this should never be about manipulating her back into your life. It should be about training yourself never to give away your backbone again. Because women come and go, desire fades, attraction shifts, but the man who keeps his discipline, his mission, his silence, he is untouchable. So, what does focus look like in practice? It looks like choosing work over whining. It looks like waking up at 5 a.m. to train when you'd rather lie in bed scrolling her photos. It looks like pouring your frustration into building a business, writing a book, crafting a skill, lifting heavier weights, running longer miles. Focus is not glamorous. It's not flashy. It's not about showing her what she lost. It's about showing yourself what you've been neglecting. Every rep, every page, every late night, every early morning is a brick by brick. You build a man so solid that no heartbreak can shatter him again. And here's the part that will sting: she might come back. They often do. The text might arrive out of nowhere. Hey, how have you been? But by then, if you've done this right, you won't feel the old rush of excitement. You'll feel calm, detached, because the man you became doesn't need her anymore. That's the moment you realize heartbreak wasn't a curse. It was the exact pain you needed to break free from your own weakness. She didn't destroy you, she revealed you. She peeled back the layers of comfort and exposed the parts of you that needed to die. That's the gift hidden inside heartbreak, the rebirth of a man who finally chooses himself. So I'll leave you with this: she didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect. And if you take that truth seriously, no heartbreak will ever control you again.